It's the same thing he did with King Charles a couple months ago when he let it be known through a source, wink, friend, wink, that he would be happy to accept an invitation to Sandringham, but of course he would only go if his wife and kids were there, and that
Oh yeah, and if there's full
he
security
knew,
paid for by people like me.
and if he knew who else was going to be there.
Every father has a breaking point, even a king, even a man who has spent decades believing patience is the price of wearing the crown, hiding every disappointment behind a calm smile whenever the cameras are watching. But according to recent insider claims, King Charles may have finally reached that point. Reports suggest he was faced with a request from his younger son that left even him, someone who has handled some of the toughest family conversations imaginable, completely stunned. This wasn't some small favor or simple request. It was something so huge, so unexpected in the way it was reportedly presented, that people familiar with the story describe the king's reaction with one word: speechless. Not furious, at least not on the surface, although there may have been frustration underneath. Just silent, the kind of silence that comes when someone you raised, someone you've spent years hoping to reconnect with, says something that makes you realize just how far apart you've really become. Now, we want to be fair here because none of this has been officially confirmed. What we're hearing is based on reports and discussions circulating among royal insiders. According to those claims, Prince Harry is said to have floated the idea, through the indirect back channels this family has become famous for, of a charitable contribution worth $10 million.
If you put things through corporations and charities, you save on tax. So, and Meghan's very sophisticated. If ever she decided that she wanted to cease being a scrubber, she could become a laundress.
On paper, the money would reportedly go toward causes Harry deeply cares about. It would also, critics argue, help rebuild a public image that has faced growing criticism in recent months. And perhaps most importantly, several royal finance observers have questioned whether Harry actually has that amount of money available to donate himself. That detail has made this rumor spread even faster. So today, we're going to look at why a story like this, even without official confirmation, seems to fit so closely with the pattern that's already been discussed for years. We'll examine the history of negotiations that many commentators believe has shaped the relationship between Harry and his father ever since he stepped away from royal duties. We'll also explore why $10 million is exactly the kind of number that has captured so much attention. And finally, we'll ask what it could mean if a request from a son reportedly left the king with no immediate response. Because this isn't really about one conversation, it's about everything that may have led up to it. There's a reason stories like this race through royal circles long before anyone officially confirms them.
It's Harry's wish list, like, oh God, maybe Catherine can get through to my brother. Catherine, can you do this? And doing it through sources, friends, whatnot. I call baloney on it. It's just really Harry stamping his feet and playing wish list again. It's absolutely obnoxious.
They often seem to match a picture that's been building for years, a picture of a prince who left royal life determined to build his own future, only to remain connected, directly or indirectly, to the institution and family wealth he once insisted he no longer depended on. Whether this exact figure turns out to be accurate or not, many royal watchers believe the overall shape of the story, a major financial request wrapped in the language of generosity, feels remarkably similar to other moments we've already seen. That's why so many people are paying attention. To understand why this latest rumor has gained so much momentum, you first have to understand the pattern many observers believe it fits into. Since stepping back from royal life, Harry's relationship with his father has often been viewed through the lens of negotiation rather than simple reconciliation. Time after time, public discussions have centered on the idea that attempts to reconnect have arrived alongside additional expectations. Supporters see those requests as reasonable. Critics see them very differently. Either way, the pattern has become impossible for many royal commentators to ignore.
Harry is the worst of the worst because, along with his wife, they are opportunists. They are there to make themselves appear as if they are these high and mighty good leaders out to do the great things for the people. But behind the scenes of all of that, they are self-serving, they are being egotistical, wanting to paint a narrative that they are doing something that is completely false to the reality.
People close to previous discussions have described similar situations before. An invitation reportedly passed through mutual friends, a carefully timed message, a quiet conversation that somehow reaches the press. Then, according to those reports, comes a list of expectations. Harry is said to be willing to attend, but only if Meghan and the children are included. Only if security arrangements are guaranteed. Only if the details of who will attend are made clear beforehand. Supporters argue those are practical concerns. Others believe it reflects a negotiating strategy disguised as a family reunion. That's the debate that continues to divide royal watchers today. And that's exactly why this latest story has attracted so much attention. If Harry truly wants reconciliation, as he has publicly spoken about in the past, wanting his children to know their grandfather and hoping old wounds can eventually heal, many people naturally expect those conversations to begin with trust rather than financial discussions. Rebuilding a relationship usually doesn't start with a price attached. Yet commentators who have followed the royal family's recent history argue that many of Harry's reported approaches have come with expectations built into them. Whether that's a fair assessment or not remains open to debate, but it's precisely why this latest rumor has become one of the biggest talking points inside royal circles. For people who have followed this family for years, a request this large would not seem completely out of character if the reports were true.
And as much as it's wonderful to be a grandfather, which I can attest to, I can also tell you that if your grandson, if your own son is causing you problems, you're not going to import even more problems. And Harry's presence in Britain is always a problem. That's the issue. Harry and Meghan and Harry are dynamite together if they'd be in Britain.
Many commentators believe it would fit the same pattern they've been talking about for a long time. Not simply a generous act for charity's sake, not a quiet donation made with no expectations attached, but something that could also bring other benefits. Critics argue it would be a proposal wrapped in the language of helping others while also creating an opportunity to gain financial support, improve public standing, or reopen doors that have gradually closed over the past few years. Whether that's fair or not is still debated, but it's exactly why stories like this spread so quickly. What many observers find most frustrating is that this pattern, if accurate, seems to work against the very goal it claims to support. Every reported attempt at reconciliation that arrives with additional expectations only strengthens the criticism Harry has publicly pushed back against for years. The perception that everything becomes part of a negotiation instead of a simple family conversation.
My understanding is that the king is absolutely resolute that it's nothing to do with him. He's not going to interfere. He's never interfered. He's left it up to Ravik. And let's remember, most of the members of Ravik are members of the government.
Yet despite those concerns, similar stories continue to surface. Different situations, different headlines, but many believe the structure rarely changes. Something is requested, something else is potentially offered in return. Whether that's family access, a public appearance, or simply the image of trying to reconnect. Critics argue the same questions keep returning. According to people who have closely followed these royal dynamics, King Charles is believed to recognize this pattern almost immediately. After years of similar situations, supporters of the king argue he no longer waits for every detail before understanding where a conversation may be heading. That's not because every report is necessarily true, but because repeated stories create expectations of their own. When similar claims continue appearing year after year, many inside royal circles naturally begin comparing each new situation to everything that came before. It's also worth thinking about what this says regarding trust inside the family itself. A close father and son usually don't need to discuss conditions before simply spending time together. The fact that so many reported interactions now appear to involve careful positioning shows just how distant the relationship has become, at least according to public accounts. Healthy reconciliation usually grows through openness and patience. Negotiations, on the other hand, begin with caution because both sides are trying to protect themselves. That's why so many royal commentators describe these conversations less as emotional reunions and more as strategic discussions. Another question people keep asking is who actually benefits whenever stories like these reach the public?
The money is running out. There is no clear plan, a total divergence in terms of what they want.
Truly, private family conversations rarely become major topics for royal commentators unless information finds its way outside the palace walls. The repeated appearance of reports involving financial requests has led to two competing theories. Some believe too many people inside royal circles simply know too much. Others suspect certain ideas are quietly allowed into public discussion first to see how people react before any bigger decisions are made. Neither explanation paints a particularly positive picture of how reconciliation is being handled. It's also important to remember that nothing happens in isolation. Every previous disagreement, every reported condition, and every difficult conversation becomes part of the palace's long-term memory. Advisors remember, senior staff remember, and King Charles has spent decades surrounded by people whose responsibility is to study every possible consequence before important decisions are made. Supporters believe those. Advisors don't just evaluate the latest request, they compare it against years of previous events, looking for patterns before recommending any response. Now let's talk about the part many people believe sits underneath nearly every royal headline: money. Whether people like admitting it or not, financial questions often become the center of these stories. That's why discussions about Harry and Meghan's finances have received so much attention recently.
But you see, he's created something for himself. So he's punished himself. So he's got a reason to moan. I mean, it is absolutely shocking. He's a prince. He's got masses of money. He's got a big house. Okay, he has a wife who tells him what to do all the time, but that was his choice.
According to various published reports, several commentators have suggested the couple's available financial resources may not be as unlimited as their California lifestyle sometimes appears to suggest. Those reports claim investment returns have become smaller over time, while ongoing expenses remain significant. None of that proves financial trouble, but it has certainly fueled public speculation. If those reports are accurate, the picture many commentators describe is not one of endless wealth, but of carefully managing a limited pool of resources year after year. That context helps explain why rumors involving a figure as large as $10 million have attracted so much attention. Critics ask where that kind of money could realistically come from, if not through outside support. Supporters reject those assumptions entirely. Either way, with several high-profile media partnerships reportedly changing over recent years, questions about future income have become a major part of the wider public conversation surrounding Harry and Meghan. That's exactly why this latest claim has captured so much attention. Not from media partnerships that have reportedly come to an end. Not from publishing opportunities that several commentators believe have largely run their course. And not from Sentabale, the charity Harry co-founded in honor of his mother, after his highly publicized departure from the organization.
And I don't think the king is that desperate to meet Archie and Lily, but that's what Harry would like to believe. I mean, the king has got other concerns. Harry and Meghan and Harry are dynamite together if they'd be in Britain. So, this is now Harry trying to play the last roll of the dice.
As more of those opportunities appear to shrink, many royal observers believe the list of realistic options becomes much shorter. That naturally leads to an uncomfortable question. If financial resources really have become more limited, as several reports have suggested, what does it mean if the biggest remaining source of potential support is the very institution Harry stepped away from, the same family he has repeatedly said he mainly wants love and understanding from? That's the question fueling so much debate. There's another irony that many critics believe is impossible to ignore. Harry's life after leaving royal duties has largely been presented as a story about independence, choosing a more authentic path away from privilege and palace life. Yet, if reports like these are even partly accurate, the solution to growing financial pressure appears to point straight back toward the same royal institution he once insisted he no longer needed. For many observers, those two ideas are difficult to reconcile. Independence sounds very different if major financial questions eventually lead back to the family fortune that was supposedly left behind. It's also important to think about what $10 million actually represents in the world of royal charitable giving. This isn't a small personal donation. It's the kind of figure more commonly associated with large foundations, long-established trusts, and organizations backed by major fundraising operations over many years. That's why some commentators believe the size of the rumored request raises practical questions beyond simply debating motives. If a contribution of that scale were ever considered, people naturally ask where the funding would realistically come from. Those questions have only become louder after previous public discussions involving charitable organizations connected to Harry. But beneath all the headlines, rumors, and financial speculation, there's another side to this story that often gets overlooked.
When Meghan was growing up, she dreamed of Hollywood stardom and being a big person on a big stage. When Harry was growing up, he dreamed of being anonymous and not recognized ever he goes. The reality is, and it's painful to watch it from someone that's dealt with Harry since he was a teenager. Meghan is living her dream. Harry is living his nightmare.
Whatever opinion people have of King Charles, friends and longtime observers have repeatedly described someone who still hopes for a closer relationship with his sons. According to those accounts, his goal has never been about winning public arguments or forcing apologies. It's about being a father and grandfather while he still has the opportunity. Whether that picture is completely accurate or not, it has remained remarkably consistent across years of reporting. And that's what gives stories like this so much emotional weight. If these reports carry any truth at all, critics argue they don't sound like the beginning of a family reunion. Instead, they appear to describe another complicated negotiation. Rather than simply rebuilding trust, the rumored request has been interpreted by some as asking King Charles to return once again to a familiar role, the person expected to solve difficult situations through financial support while the deeper emotional divide remains exactly where it has been for years. That's the part many royal commentators find most heartbreaking. People close to palace reporting have also suggested that King Charles has become noticeably firmer whenever discussions involving Harry arise. Not hostile, not driven by revenge, simply more determined to allow official processes to handle sensitive matters instead of stepping in personally. Decisions involving security, family access, and other difficult questions have increasingly been left to established institutional procedures. Some critics see that as emotional distance. Others believe it's simply the king setting healthier boundaries after years of repeated public tensions.
Seeing your grandchildren should just be a natural thing. There should not be any negotiations around seeing your grandchildren. How absurd is that? And at the end of all of this, Dan, Harry is going to regret it so much because you do not use your children as pawns to get what you want. Make it about your children seeing their grandfather. Make it about them having the experience of knowing your father, the king, before, he passes on.
Which interpretation is correct depends largely on who you ask. If this latest story is even partly accurate, one thing may have changed more than anything else: the king's willingness to quietly absorb every reported request without reacting. For years, the public pattern has seemed familiar. Stories emerge suggesting Harry has asked for something through unofficial channels. The palace declines to comment. Eventually, the headlines disappear until another report takes their place. But the description being repeated this time is different. Not silence, but speechlessness. And there is a big difference between the two. Silence can be deliberate. Speechlessness suggests something so unexpected that even decades of royal experience offered no immediate response. Whether that description ultimately proves accurate or not, it's exactly why this story has captured so much attention across royal circles today. Take a moment to think about what it would actually take to leave someone like King Charles without an immediate reply. This is a man who has spent his entire adult life preparing for moments exactly like these. From childhood, he was trained to stay calm no matter what challenge landed in front of him. Over the decades, he has faced public controversies, painful family moments, and constant media attention while maintaining the composed image expected of a monarch. So, if reports claiming he was left speechless are true, many people believe it wasn't simply because of the amount of money involved. They believe something about the request itself, perhaps the timing, the way it was reportedly presented, or the broader message behind it may have struck a much deeper emotional chord. Experts who study family estrangement often describe a very specific kind of heartbreak. It isn't always one dramatic event that causes the greatest pain. Sometimes it's the slow disappointment that builds over years, hoping each new conversation might finally repair the relationship, only to feel like the same problems continue repeating themselves. if the rumors surrounding this story are accurate. Some royal commentators believe that kind of emotional exhaustion may explain why the king reportedly had no immediate words. Not because he didn't know what to say, but because he may have felt he had already been through the same cycle too many times before. The most important part of this story may have very little to do with money at all. Instead, it raises a much bigger question.
I can't think of a single billionaire or trillionaire who's like, you know who I really am dying to date? That sort of kooky ex-duchess over in the mansion in Montecito selling the flower sprinkles and the jams. That's who I want, okay? I just don't think the billionaires are out for it. And so I think Meghan Markle, if she leaves Prince Harry, there will be a fight over the kids.
Does Harry fully understand how requests like these are received by the people he hopes to reconnect with? Does he see the difference between how he believes his actions are being interpreted and how they may actually be viewed inside royal circles? Those questions have become central to the ongoing public discussion, and they go far beyond any single rumor about finances. People who have followed Harry's journey for years often describe someone whose decisions, particularly those involving family relationships, money, and public image, appear very different from the choices he once made earlier in life. Opinions vary widely about why that may be. Some believe outside influences have played a role. Others argue the years of public conflict have naturally changed his perspective. Whatever explanation people support, many commentators say it has become increasingly difficult to view recent events as simple attempts to rebuild trust without also noticing the strategic planning that often seems to surround them. Some royal observers also believe there's a deeper misunderstanding at work here. According to that view, dramatic gestures, eye-catching numbers, and high-profile charitable ideas cannot replace the slower process of rebuilding trust. Relationships damaged over many years usually aren't repaired through one major announcement or one symbolic act. They require patience, listening, consistency, and time. Whether that criticism is fair or not, it's a theme that appears repeatedly whenever discussions about Harry and the royal family return to the headlines. Perhaps that's the real sadness many people see underneath this entire story. It's not necessarily about whether $10 million is a realistic figure. For a family connected to major institutions and long-established charitable organizations, money itself may not be the biggest issue. Instead, critics argue the real challenge is the belief that the size of a gesture automatically reflects the depth of reconciliation it represents. According to those observers, rebuilding trust cannot simply be measured by the scale of a financial proposal. It has to be demonstrated over time through actions that consistently rebuild confidence. For those who remember Harry before the years of royal disagreements, this debate feels especially emotional. Many still remember the younger prince who appeared happiest supporting veterans, visiting charities, and participating in causes that seemed personally meaningful. Whether during military service or public engagements, he was often praised for showing warmth and genuine enthusiasm. That's why some longtime royal watchers feel today's public image looks dramatically different from the one that once made him one of the monarchy's most popular figures. They wonder what changed along the way. Whether that change came from personal growth, outside influences, years of public conflict, or simply life taking an unexpected direction remains a matter of opinion. But many commentators believe one thing stands out above everything else: the apparent lack of awareness about how these situations continue to be perceived. If that's true, it may explain why stories like this keep returning to the headlines. Because regardless of whether every rumor proves accurate, the same questions continue surfacing again and again. And for many people watching from the outside, that repeated pattern has become just as significant as any single report itself. Someone with a clear understanding of how their actions are being received would likely recognize that repeated grand gestures have not brought them any closer to the relationship they say they want. Yet, according to many royal commentators, the same pattern appears to continue. Each reported attempt seems disconnected from the lessons of the last one, almost as though every new effort begins with a clean slate. Whether that's because of a genuine misunderstanding or simply a refusal to change strategy remains open to interpretation. But from the outside, many observers say the outcome continues to look remarkably similar. History has shown that pushing too hard can carry consequences, especially inside royal families. Across generations, there have been stories of relatives who asked for more, demanded too much, or misjudged how far they could go before relationships became strained. That's why some royal watchers are now asking whether Harry may be adding another chapter to that long history. No one knows how this situation will ultimately unfold, but the comparison has become an increasingly common part of public discussion. The difficult reality about rebuilding trust in a family like this is that every unsuccessful attempt makes the next one even more complicated. Every reported request that goes unanswered, every public disagreement, and every headline that creates fresh tension can make future conversations harder rather than easier. Trust is not something that returns overnight. It grows slowly, and once it's damaged, rebuilding it often takes much longer than people expect. That's why many commentators believe King Charles may now be approaching these situations very differently than he once did. After years of public criticism, personal disagreements, and highly publicized family tensions, some observers believe the king may simply have less willingness to continue repeating the same cycle. If the rumors surrounding this latest story are accurate, critics argue the request could be interpreted less as an emotional attempt to reconnect and more as another complicated negotiation. Supporters would strongly disagree with that interpretation, but it's one of the central reasons this story has generated so much attention inside royal circles. There's also another important question: how stories like this affect public opinion even if they are never officially confirmed. Whether or not the reported request actually happened exactly as described, the perception alone can influence how people view the situation. According to several commentators, claims involving another major financial request tied to charitable causes may not help the wider effort that some believe Harry and Meghan have been making to improve their public image. Fair or unfair, public perception often develops long before every detail is fully known. Some critics argue that stories like these reinforce a narrative that's followed the couple for years: the belief that discussions about generosity, reconciliation, or family eventually become linked to significant financial questions. Supporters reject that characterization, pointing out that speculation often becomes accepted as fact far too quickly. But regardless of which side people support, the debate itself continues to shape how the public interprets every new headline involving the Sussexes. That's become part of the challenge they now face. Then there's Prince William, whose influence inside the royal family is widely believed to be growing. According to people familiar with palace reporting, William has consistently favored firm, predictable boundaries over repeated attempts at cautious reconciliation. If this latest story contains any truth, some royal observers believe it could strengthen that approach even further. As William prepares for his future role, many expect his views on handling difficult family matters to carry increasing weight within the institution. That's why his perspective has become an important part of this wider discussion. Perhaps the biggest long-term issue isn't the reported financial figure at all. It may be the gradual shift in public perception that has taken place over recent years. There was a time when many people might have automatically assumed positive intentions behind stories involving Harry. Today, according to many commentators, similar reports are more likely to be viewed through a lens of skepticism. Meanwhile, the steady public roles carried out by working members of the royal family, especially William and Catherine, continue drawing praise for their consistency. Over time, that reliability has become one of their greatest strengths. In the end, many observers believe consistency creates trust in ways that even the largest symbolic gesture simply cannot replace. So, where does that leave us after a story built, at least for now, on rumors rather than confirmed facts? It leaves us with a question that's worth asking regardless of whether the reported $10 million figure is ultimately proven accurate. Why did this story sound believable to so many people almost instantly? Why did the idea of Harry reportedly asking his father for such a huge charitable contribution feel possible instead of impossible? That's the question that has sparked so much discussion across royal circles. For many commentators, the answer lies in the pattern that's been built over recent years: repeated reconciliation efforts that reportedly arrived with conditions attached, ongoing financial speculation despite public statements about independence, and a father-son relationship that, according to many observers, has struggled to separate genuine emotion from complicated negotiations. Whether every detail of this latest rumor is true or not, many believe it reflects the broader tensions that have shaped this family for a long time. That's why so many people found themselves paying attention from the very beginning. It's also worth remembering that stories like these rarely appear completely out of nowhere. Journalists covering the royal family, palace insiders, and longtime royal commentators often hear fragments of information long before anything can be officially confirmed. That doesn't automatically make every rumor true, but it does explain why certain stories continue gaining momentum. In many cases, public speculation begins because people believe it reflects a real disagreement or ongoing tension that simply hasn't been fully explained yet. That's often how royal stories develop before the complete picture becomes available. Whether the exact figure of $10 million is accurate or not, the larger situation described by many commentators feels familiar to people who have followed this family closely. A reported request, a difficult relationship, a father said to be growing increasingly tired after years of public disagreements. Those themes have appeared repeatedly in discussions surrounding King Charles and Prince Harry. That's why this latest rumor has resonated with so many royal watchers, even without official confirmation from either side. And perhaps that's the biggest takeaway from today's story. Not whether every reported detail turns out to be exactly right, not whether the final number is $10 million or something completely different. The most revealing part may simply be that almost nobody following this family found the idea especially shocking. When a story this dramatic feels believable before any proof arrives, it says a great deal about how public trust and expectations have changed over time. That's a powerful reality all by itself. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one question because I'd really like to hear what you think. If someone you cared about kept showing up with huge symbolic gestures instead of small, consistent efforts to rebuild trust, would you eventually stop believing those gestures were really about the relationship? And do you believe Harry and King Charles can still repair what's been broken, or has too much happened for that door to fully open again? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown and found it interesting, don't forget to hit the like button because it really helps the channel grow. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our next royal update. And if you think someone else would enjoy this discussion, be sure to share this video with them too. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.